Andrew Jeune here with your Asian Racing Review. I'm joined by Michael Cox, who's the editor and founder of the Asian Racing Report. And Michael, we've been talking a lot about Hong Kong over the last couple of weeks, and we'll come back to that in a moment, charting on the weekend. But first up, it's the Asian Racing Conference. Starts this week in Melbourne. What should be, or what is being discussed, and what should be discussed this week, do you think?
Well, I think there's a clear difference between what I think should have been discussed and what will be discussed now in light of recent news. Firstly, what I think should have been on the agenda and would have been on the agenda, and not necessarily on the stage, but in the foyers and when the powers that be come together, is the health of parimutuel tote pools in the region, and particularly Australia, and some sort of pan-region solutions to that. You know, in a week where we have the first Australian-based World Pool race, which is a World Pool being the Hong Kong Jockey Club commingled parimutuel tote pool. What we have there, and we have a great piece today with Brent O'Brien on Asian Racing Report about the decline of parimutuel wagering in Australia. But what will be on the agenda and what people will be talking about somehow is Peter V'landys, given the fact that he's the head of Racing New South Wales, wasn't intending to attend, won't be there, but he's still somehow made himself the centre of attention.
Yeah, well, I'm going to read from the Daily Telegraph. It has been reported elsewhere as well, of course, but a secret dossier obtained by the Daily Telegraph maps out a battle plan for a shock and awe campaign against Mr. V'landys to advise the racing body to prepare for months of expensive, disruptive and damaging warfare. There's going to be New South Wales Supreme Court action that Racing New South Wales is bringing against now Victoria, Queensland, South Australia and Western Australia. Understood that Racing New South Wales is alleging the other bodies were attempting to form a cartel which constituted anti-competitive behaviour and a potential breach of corporation law.
Yeah, well done for getting through 3 paragraphs of Daily Telegraph copy. Congratulations. But first of all, it is outstanding news, juicy news, if you like, in terms of, I don't think it's great news for racing in Australia, but it's certainly a tantalising prospect that, and the timing, I don't think it's coincidental that Peter V'landys has called essentially the other states to court, alleging collusion on the first day of the Asian Racing Conference. You know, he's got some powerful friends to Peter V'landys in the media and with the Daily Telegraph, and they're right behind his move. Accompanying this news story was an entertaining editorial in the Telegraph, which spoke of a black ops cloak and dagger scheme by nameless and nefarious Victorian schemers, which is some pretty entertaining sort of copy, and throws the cat amongst the pigeons there as far as like your move, Racing Victoria. I don't have much to say on it yet, but let's see. What I would say is that Peter V'landys has a record of creating news. I mean, while this is all going on, by the way, he's also the chairman of the National Rugby League, which is in a quite bitter collective bargaining dispute with the Rugby League Players Association right now. So he's not only he seems to be picking a fight with basically everybody at the moment. So all of the other racing states and rugby league players in general. So he's at the centre of some conflict.
I mean, he's lifted these sort of words straight out of a crime thriller. But I mean, the bit you come back to on a serious note is prepare for months of expensive, disruptive and damaging welfare. You know, that isn't good, in whichever way you look at it.
Well, that was what is alleged to be the plan from the other states. So let's wait and see, get the popcorn out, and we'll be at the Asian Racing Conference, and there'll be plenty of people to talk to, and this ensures that there'll be something interesting to talk to people about.
All right, well, hopefully plenty of positive things come out of the conference as well. They're hitting all the big subjects, so the wagering, the horse, the staff, the owner, all those angles. A quick word just back on the Lightning Stakes, and being a world pool, it's important, I think we keep, or is it important for the health of international racing that World Pool is now in Australia and getting bigger each year?
I guess so, in terms of it's probably less seen as less important in Australia. And if you read Bren's piece on Asian Racing Report today, you'll see that maybe Australian operators and principal racing authorities have neglected the parimutuel wagering aspect of their business. Flowing, lots of revenue flowing from corporate bookmakers in the last sort of 10 years. But if you look at the healthiest jurisdictions, granted, Hong Kong and Japan are protected, not monopolies, but protected parimutuel operators. But there's still, I think it is important. Look, it's a lot more important to places where revenue is in decline and the sport is struggling for funding, like Royal Ascot World Pool, somewhere like Germany or South Africa. The World Pool races take on far more importance. Would I think they are important for Australia? Absolutely.
All right, we'll keep moving then. Beauty Eternal won on the weekend, last race at Sha Tin. Is he your number one Derby pick now?
I think he is. We'll have a new Hong Kong Derby rankings list tomorrow on Asian Racing Report, where we ask our experts to rank their Derby hopes 1 through 14. Beauty Eternal, he's been on the radar. We've talked about him here in the last couple of weeks. He has a low rating, but John Sires bringing him up from a PPG that debuted in October last year, and now coming through after a win yesterday that I really liked. He'll probably be rated in the high 80s, 87 to 90. He'll need one more run before he goes to the Derby to sort of prove his worth. He probably has the rating anyway, but John Sires will want to see a positive run from him. Look, it wasn't a strong Class 3. He was back from $1.50 into $1.25. Did it easily, but I like some aspects of what he did in the run.
The way he did it.
Yeah, he could have led. He jumped clean from barrier 1. Zach Purton had the option, but when taken on, he was able to relax. That's important, going up in distance into a Derby. I think it's less about stamina than it is about tractability when they get to the 2,000 metre races at Sha Tin, particularly the Derby. It's a stop-start tempo. So he showed he can do a couple of different things in the run, handed up, moved out, and then he did it easy on the line. So he goes to his next start with some confidence. That next start, I don't think he'll go to the Classic Cup on the same day as the Classic Cup in 2 weeks from now, on February 26. There is a Class 2 1,600 metre handicap. That'll be against the older horses. I tend to think that's where he'll go. If he doesn't go there, he can go a week later into an 1,800 metre Class 2, and that will leave him 2 weeks to the Derby. So, look, it's going to be great to watch John Sires try and work a balancing act with this horse. He probably had the Derby favourite already in Tuchel. Let's see. The bookmakers have Beauty Eternal favourite now. Let's see who our experts have as number one in our rankings.
Something that's how important it is, I don't know, but certainly I find interesting. You mentioned he's a PPG. Hong Kong's top 5 horses, all PPGs as well. Golden City, actually Romantic was ISG, but unraced coming into Hong Kong. Romantic Warrior, California Spangle, Lucky Sweynesse and Wellington, all coming through the ranks and not bought in as expensive imports.
Well, I think it speaks to a trend that we've written about a lot here on Asian Racing Report, is that there's an emphasis on PPGs, the unraced prospects that come in. There's more permits for PPGs now than there were before, and PPs, private purchases, that is horses that have raced before, are harder to buy, whether that's out of Australia, which is obvious because of the great prize money on offer, more owners, people less likely to give up their horses that once were bound for Hong Kong. So the shift is towards the PPGs, and it's looking good. And I guess in the last few years we've wondered about the quality of horses in Hong Kong, but with that shift, I guess it did need time and adjustment. And look, Beauty Eternal, whether he goes to the Derby or not, we're looking through it through the prism of as a Derby prospect.
Yes.
But let's say there was no Derby on the horizon and that was just a Class 3 win, we'd still be pretty excited about him. We'd still be talking about a potential group horse.
Yeah, definitely. All right, switching to Japan, it was the Kyoto Kinen run on the weekend. Do Deuce back in good heart.
Yeah, great to see. Do Deuce well beaten in the arc on ground that he just did not like at all. But I guess there was that question mark. Was it just the ground, and going to France and being so comprehensively beaten, the Derby winner, would he come back as good as before? We saw Equinox, who was the runner-up in the Derby behind Do Deuce, come out and clinch Horse of the Year honours with that great win in the Arima Kinen. Do Deuce, as impressive as he could have been there, returning over 2,200 metres. Interestingly, he'll come back in distance, and the reports out of Japan indicate that he will head to the Dubai Turf over 1,800 metres rather than step up to the 2,400 metres of the Shima Classic, and for a rematch with what would be a rematch with Equinox.
But possible if Golden 60 went there, that'd be the race he'd go for, the Turf, whether that happens.
That would have been the Turf, and he would have been up against Do Deuce, would have been a tantalising prospect. But I do think when you look at that win yesterday and the strength of that race, maybe they have made the right choice, Golden 60's connections, to wait until the G2 Kyoto later in the Hong Kong racing season.
All right, and of course Japan had a great Dubai last year with 5 winners. They do well to replicate that, but Do Deuce and Equinox might be 2. Anamoe, back with a bit of a bang. He was one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name, in Australia last year. It returns, won very easily. What did you make of that victory? And future plans? They're talking about a swan song at Royal Ascot.
I had the privilege of being there at Randwick on Saturday for the Apollo Stakes with our chief journalist, David Morgan. And we went over before the race. I think one of the keys was like, how will Anamoe, especially with a view to going overseas, how's his temperament? How is he handling the pre-race? And because it's been a problem for him, particularly first up before, being fresh and a bit fractious in the tie-up stalls and hard to handle. He's not an easy horse to handle. And we spoke to Darren Beedman, the assistant trainer at Godolphin, there before the race, who's responsible for helping the horse settle in. And, they've done a great job managing this entire through to now. You don't see a lot of stallions continue to race on these days. And it's good to see. And it was good to see Anamoe handle things better than before. It can go the wrong way with horses. And that's a great sign. He never looks that impressive in his wins. Doesn't put big margins on horses, but he obviously has a real dominance and a competitiveness about him. But it was just that concern when it comes to travel is, would he run his race before the race? And we've seen horses go to Royal Ascot first time before and not handle the occasion, not handle the long pre-race. I was there when Abel Friend went over as a short price favourite. Now, maybe he wasn't right, but he had a complete meltdown in the hour before the race. Anamoe, the way he handled things on Saturday, it really is a great sign for his future.
Okay, they're talking about probably the Queen and possibly the Prince of Wales Estate as maybe some sort of backup, but I think the straight mile would be for him. All right, what else are we looking at as far as the website's concerned this week?
Great story this morning from David Morgan about Jeune and Fifi Moore, who possibly taught the rampant rumours out of Macau that they would be taking up a trainer's licence, or that Fifi would be taking up a trainer's licence with the Macau Jockey Club. There were photos in the local Chinese media over the weekend of Jeune and Fifi touring the facilities there over at Taipa. Jeune saying, no, not yet. I think there's still that. He didn't categorically rule it out in the long term, but Fifi Moore will not be training in Macau in the short term. But I'll just say it would be an exciting prospect to have another Moore there. That would make, Nicholas is working with John's brother Gary. Peter Lation's still there. He's married to John's sister, so there'd be quite a few of the Moore clan in the trainer's stand. But one little aspect of that story that I find interesting is that if the Moores were to train in Hong Kong and were to receive some solid support from owners, that all of the Hong Kong group races, pattern races, are now open to overseas entrants. And we have seen a few Macau horses come over and contest Group 2s and Group 3s. Look, I'd love to see a John Moore racing truck head over the Macau Hong Kong bridge with some runners for some group races, but not yet.
Not yet. There might be a little bit more in this story yet to come. Great stuff. All right, thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, well, like and subscribe as always, and keep tuning in for more with the Asian Racing Review.